Hello and welcome to the NorthStar Cafe. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you're joining us from. Lovely to have you here. And I welcome you to join us in the chat and tell us where you're joining us from. My name is Meenakshi Iyer. I'm your host and the founder and principal of NorthStar Solutions and Services, which is a boutique, future of work oriented virtual coaching, training, and consulting practice. And we have the privilege of serving clients globally. We partner with executive leaders and senior leaders and their organizations in unpacking leadership at the messy middle. So we partner with mid-career technology leaders, women in tech, and folks like myself who speak English as an additional language in shaping their people and change leadership journeys. So I'm an ICF certified leadership coach, and with a 25 plus year background in technology and other industries. NorthStar Cafe is something I've been doing for a few months now, and to me, this is a conversation space that is dedicated to action-oriented conversations on leadership development, particularly at the intersection of people, process, and technology. And this is where I have the pleasure and honor of speaking with guests from around the world on topics relating to leadership development, future of work, and inclusive leadership. And one of the topics that is close to my heart is community building. I consider myself a community builder, and I think that with my lived experience personally and professionally, I've had the opportunity to build community both at work and now through my work at NorthStar Solutions and Services. And believe it or not, I strongly believe that it is a critical leadership skill. Expectations of employees are changing, employee-employer relationship is changing, and one of the ways in which strong engagement can be built is by building community at work. And so someone that I look up to is my guest today to talk about community building as a leadership skill. And let me bring my guest on stage today. Thank you so much for joining us, Shilpa. Lovely to have you here at the NorthStar Cafe.
My pleasure. Looking forward to our conversation today, Meenakshi.
Absolutely. And Shilpa, I want to share about how we first met and why I think you're the best person to talk about community building as a leadership skill. So Shilpa Ajwani is the founder and CEO of unomantra. So her background is in leadership and business strategy consulting, and unomantra is a business strategy consulting and leadership advisory firm. She's based in Delhi in India, and she has been around the block a few times, so she knows what she's talking about. And I can't wait to hear more about this topic today from you, Shilpa. And well, how we met is well through LinkedIn and through this amazing, enriching, beautiful online community that you've created for women coaches and consultants. That's called SHEMantra. And I'm going to, I have been one of your beneficiaries. I'm part of that group. And I remember that's how we met when you had reached out to me on LinkedIn. And I cannot tell you how amazed I am. And I know that when we met this time in person, that's the other thing. I had the joy of meeting you in person this time while I was in India. Like I shared there, the way you have built the community, nurtured the community, and how you go about ensuring that everybody feels included, everybody feels welcome, it's just absolutely amazing. And so when I started thinking about this topic, you were top of mind for me to reach out and have this conversation. So once again, thank you so much for being here with me today. And for those of you watching live, listening live, wanted to share with you that we are live on all three channels of NorthStar Solutions and Services on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you are unable to join us live, make sure you catch the replay at any of these three channels. So having said that, Shilpa, first of all, I'd love to hear a first-person account of your own journey and how you got to where you are today, and then we'll dig a little bit into the origin story of SHEMantra. Over to you.
Thank you, Meenakshi. Big pleasure being here with your audience and you today. My journey, I think, goes back professionally to about 3 decades. And I started in the corporate world, built several businesses, brands, communities inside of the businesses that I led. I was a CXO and then a CEO for almost a decade of two different brands. And in that journey, I think I learned so many vital lessons, also got to know my inherent strengths, which helped me to lead in a very dynamic, fast changing world that I found myself in. And I think everything from startup to scale to business transformation is something that I did, which I really feel was a great way to get my hands dirty, to be in the trenches when that was needed, to be with my leadership team when we needed to strategize and stay on top of where the world was going. And in the meanwhile, the world turned from a VUCA world to the Barney world, right? And many more interesting things. So I think, using all that tremendous experience that I had in the world of business, becoming an awarded CEO at a young age, allowed me to then take the jump from the corporate world to the world of entrepreneurship. And I made that switch with my purpose being to really look at the world of consulting, especially
Mm.
strategy and leadership consulting, in a very fresh way. And at that point in time, we were just dabbling with the word purpose. But it wasn't a word which was part of the everyday vocabulary, especially of business people. And here I was, creating this whole strategic approach to building businesses and brands called per positioning, which means positioning, your brand, your business, your people based on your purpose. And Uno Mantra really started to differentiate itself as a strategy consulting and leadership advisory firm. I also frequently found myself in meetings with not just the CXOs and the CEOs, but also larger teams who I love to meet, especially at the mid level levels. And it was just so interesting to see that this is the time where everybody needs to stand up and be a leader. This is the time where we need to make strategic thinking the purview of everyone in the organization,
Mm.
and they should own it. And to own it, they need to understand it. And that sort of gave rise to a vertical of leadership advisory,
Mm.
where within that, we really discuss all topics related to leadership and especially focus on strategic thinking as a skill that I definitely want to see all organizations adopt and build in all their teams, especially at the mid level, so that we don't wait till they are at fairly senior levels, not knowing how to navigate the craziness of this changing world. And that's something Uno Mantra takes a lot of pride in doing as well today.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And could not agree with you more about the focus on mid-level. And I think it's an area of specific interest for me. So I'm biased. I totally agree with you. Um, so I wanted to ask you, given your experience in the corporate and now as an entrepreneur, uh, what does community really mean to you? And your experiences in a corporate setting and outside of it.
So, community to me actually is the word of the decade. If you were to ask me, this is something I believe so much from the bottom of my heart, because I define it as a beautiful shared space where people inhabit it because they have a shared purpose and they are seeking collective success. So it's larger than any one individual inside of that shared space, and it is for the collective success of all. And the way I look at community is, and it's definitely a leadership skill as well for me, given my extensive experience with being a leader and with leadership, that it's all about creating an environment where people can thrive because the leader is able to connect team members and other leaders and really multiply their impact and how they feel inside of that shared space, the community, because there is trust, there is a sense
Mm.
of connection, there is a sense of belonging, there's a zeal for wanting to contribute because you think of it as your own, and not a place where you're obliged to go, or you go because you are pushed to, right, for whatever reasons in life, to pay the bills or to feel like you're doing something in life. No, none of that. It's really an environment where you really feel as a community member a sense of belonging, connection,
Mm.
um, strong relationships. And to me, isn't leadership all about that as well?
Yeah.
Yes. And if you ask me, I really say that anybody wanting to build a community should really look at five pillars very, very intently. And even before you jump in and create the community.
Mm.
And many people confuse the word community with digital platforms. I mean, all that is a medium, right? But to me, the fundamentals and the essentials of how we relate to each other and our needs, those
Mm.
haven't changed over a period of time. And in fact, today we have a pandemic of loneliness,
Yes.
right? Where we have devices that can connect us, but the hearts are still far apart. So community has a big meaning inside of the leadership space as well, and that domain definitely is all about, as is community, about these five pillars for me. First, to me, is clarity of purpose,
Mm.
that what brings people together, why are you doing this, right? The second really is a sense of connection through really authentic communication. So that's the second piece for me. The third piece is culture,
Mm.
that allows for camaraderie. Now, wouldn't we benefit if we have more camaraderie inside of our organizations, inside of businesses, and certainly inside of more informal communities? Everybody likes to lighten up and to really feel like they can have a good time and relax and be their own person,
Mm.
and not be forced to be someone else, right? And that's a need employees are expressing to us everywhere. As I work even inside of my consulting business, I think this is something I hear all the time. So that's three. The fourth is really creativity,
Mm.
and really, creative thinking skills is one of the essential life skills as defined by WHO, long years back. And I think it's getting more and more relevant in today's world, because we need to constantly innovate and find creative ways, unique solutions to all the different problems that we are facing, organizations are facing, and
Yeah.
all the answers certainly are not inside the boardroom. And the last one, the fifth one, is really a sense of contribution.
Mm.
Because employees today, or community members today, everybody's looking for a sense of meaning when they connect, when they come into a space. So that sense of contribution is something which is, really underrated, but it is so critical, because everybody wants, and they have unique talents, and they want a way to fully express them authentically as well. So these are five, and that's why I say it's certainly a leadership skill. It's the word of the decade, and it's the need of the hour. If you're not already a part of a community or building one, then you should be experiencing FOMO.
Love that. Love that. Word of the decade, need of the hour. I love that. And I also loved how you basically gave us like a little uh, masterclass here, on by sharing the five pillars of community. I love that: purpose, connection, culture, creativity, and contribution. And I also, going back to what you shared in your own introduction, the positioning as you talked about it, and this also, as I'm hearing you talk, what came up for me is it also ties to um, one of the models of psychological safety, where contributor safety and learner safety, those are two aspects of the four aspects of psychological safety. And I loved how you drew parallels between the work that you're doing public facing as an entrepreneur and the parallels that an organizational leader can draw from in this context. This is absolutely fantastic, Shilpa. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I wanted to also ask you, as a follow up to this, why do you think community building is important as a leadership skill? Why should leaders care about it, especially leaders within organizations?
I really feel that, not just because of the pandemic, I feel the pandemic amplified what was really, there as an undercurrent, simmering below the surface. Uh, the elephant in most rooms, but people chose not to see the fact that we are seeing the highest level of disengagement of employees inside of organizations. We are seeing trust breaking down. We are seeing silos, even though hierarchies might be lesser, but there is certainly a sense that there are silos, people aren't connected, and the whole hybrid way of working and trying to integrate both work and life, though useful and has its own merits, but it's creating a lot of distance. And there is a breakdown of communication. It's become very transactional. It's no longer transformational in many ways, because a lot of the leaders are still grappling with how to do it right. And then, at the leadership level, there are all kind of fears people have that, are my employees moonlighting? And I don't want that. I want to see everybody here in the office all 5 days, and the employees are resisting that because they've found a way to live and work better as per them. So we having a lot more confrontation. Some of it is said, some of it is unsaid. Trust breakdown, communication breakdown, and this is exactly the opposite of what is needed right now. Because look at what's happening in the environment, right? I mean, you've got wars going on. You've got, consumer confidence, which isn't really, honestly, at an all-time high either, apart from the employee confidence going down. So that's a very deadly combination attacking businesses. Recessionary fears, big supply chain disruptions, a lot of concern around AI, and will it really take away jobs or create jobs, or will people need to upskill, and how quickly does that need to happen? And all of that is happening all at once. So this leaves people really lost and disconnected. And that's where community inside of organizations is an essential need. As I said before, also leaders need to understand that this is a beautiful way of, bringing in discretionary effort, right? As Daniel Pink really said, if you really want, your employees to exhibit that drive, they definitely are looking at a sense of belonging, a sense where they are valued, a sense where there's purpose to what they do, and a fair bit of autonomy and an empowerment. And all of this is when you think about it, not just like a hierarchical organization, but you really think about it as a community. And so that's the difference, but not everybody really gets it because there's so many intangibles when you're creating a community, and you need to really have the ability to nurture. So a lot of the principles related to harnessing feminine energy are also very vital, which brings me to the point that never before has the cause of diversity, equity, and inclusion been so important, selfishly also for organizations, because we need every voice to come in and add to who we can become and how far we can go. Few people no longer can lead everyone. I really am seeing that across the globe as I work with people.
Absolutely. There was so much wisdom in what you shared there, Shilpa. One of the things that stood out for me is when you talked about community as a way of activating discretionary effort within organizations, because it automatically sort of creates that sense of belonging. And something that you had said earlier on, communities being that shared space, there's that shared purpose, and you're seeking collective success. Just 1 second. Sorry about that. So, and the other piece around organizations really needing everyone's voice to be heard.
Yes.
And community is a beautiful way of making that happen and supporting that. And the third thing that you said about the leaning into the feminine energy that exists in each one of us, regardless of our gender. And that's the thing about traits, right? Leadership traits. Certain traits are, we believe them to be more masculine, and we label them as such, right? But the ability to nurture, and I think that's foundational to creating a successful community. And I know we're going to get into a little bit more about that with your experience of creating and nurturing SHEMantra. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that.
Sure.
Yeah. And we have a couple of comments here from Sajid. Hi, Sajid. Thank you for joining us. Sajid is a friend and an ally. He's based in Toronto, Canada. So he says it requires the ability to listen to others, communicate effectively, and foster a sense of belonging and cooperation. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels valued and heard, and where the collective strengths and talents of the group are harnessed to achieve a shared vision. It's very similar to what you shared, Shilpa.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely to see the resonance.
Beautifully expressed, Sajid. I couldn't agree more. A great choice of words. And I think it really packs in everything I was trying to communicate as well in a beautiful way. So thanks for that.
Yep. And he goes on to say that there is immense power when a group of people with similar interests get together to work towards the same goals. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. Uh, um, before I go on to the next question, Shilpa, is there anything you would like to add in response to what Sajid has shared?
Just one point, John Maxwell, the big leadership guru, says that there is this law of explosive growth. And if organizations and societies really want to see explosive growth, it's not just enough that everybody looks after their personal success or takes care of their own personal growth. It's not enough that a leader just looks at nurturing a team of followers, but it's so important that every leader looks at multiplying the leaders in any organization, and really looks at leadership development with a sense of urgency. And when leaders multiply, that's where any organization can hope for explosive growth, because then suddenly 1+1 is certainly not 2, it's not 11, it feels like 111, and that's exactly what you want to see. Because just a moment ago I was describing that there are so many headwinds businesses have, and you're facing so much that is resisting your growth.
Yep.
And here, if you have to win in this marketplace and in this environment, then explosion is only possible when you build leaders. And for leaders, they need a very fertile, nurturing ground, and nothing better than a community to be able to do that.
Very beautifully said. And what that brought up for me, Shilpa, as you said that, is also that community is another. It's a very impactful space to demonstrate self-leadership, because community is based on choice and free will. You show up because you choose to do that, and you contribute because you choose to do so. Everything is discretionary, borrowing from your words before. And I think that and I found this, and this is something I find a lot with the clients that I work with as well, is we tend to wait, and I've been guilty of this. We tend to wait for a promotion, a title to be given to us, for us to even consider our own selves as leaders, because that's sort of like the what we've seen around us of leadership models, right? And with that lived experience, I strongly believe that each of us is a leader and we have it in ourselves to lead from wherever we are. And I think that community is a great training ground for us to practice that skill of self-leadership as well. That's what came up for me as you were sharing that.
True. And Meenakshi, another very important point is that never before in our history have we had four generations at work.
That's
So,
right.
right, and talk to anybody who's belonging to the Gen Z cohort or even the late millennials. I mean, how do they feel about working in a very strictly autocratic, hierarchical setup? I mean, they wouldn't last a day, and I've seen people not lasting a day as well. Right? They quickly cancel and they exit. Without another job in hand,
Yep.
because it's so important for them to really see that what they believe in is what the organization also believes in, and will their dreams get manifested here because
Mm.
there's somebody who's enabling them in a way that really allows them to bring their full self to work,
Mm.
rather than diminishing them basis age or race or ethnicity or gender. Right? So they are very quick to dismiss that. So I think it's also an essential need. Few people are recognizing that the community really integrates everybody, and you show up as an equal,
Yep.
uh, right?
Yeah.
Because you are valuable for what you bring, not for your age or other ways we like to label people. So I thought I'll make this point as well because
Yeah.
it's upon us. It's a
Yes.
reality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very valuable. Very valuable. Thank you. And I want to put a plug in for a conversation series that I'd done. I think it was back in 2020 or 2021. I'd gotten together with one of my mentors and his daughter. So between the three of us, we were represented three different generations.
Mhm.
And we talked about the conversation series was around the future of work, a multi-generational perspective. I'll include the link to that in the show notes. But and as you shared, Shilpa, it just struck me that I absolutely agree with you that building community brings all of these different groups of people who otherwise may not have common ground or shared space. It is
True.
able to bring everyone together, and that's absolutely, it's very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So in the second half of this conversation, I want to dig into SHEMantra. You are the creator and the nurturer and the curator of SHEMantra. So talk to us about what was your inspiration and what have you learned from building SHEMantra?
Wow, there's just so many lessons, but I'll come to that in a bit. So I go back to the time where we had the first COVID lockdown in India at that point in time. This was June, July of 2020. And I was just finishing up a strategy call with one of my consulting clients, and we were looking at pivoting their business and making a big change to the business model because suddenly a lockdown had been announced. We were still sanitizing groceries and everything else. We had no idea when we would be able to get our freedom back and get out of homes and life would look normal again. This was also not the time that everybody was comfortable using Zoom and the Google Meets and the Teams. A lot of it hadn't even been sort of created in the avatars we know them today. And certainly there was no ease for doing a lot of sensitive conversations like this virtually, completely unheard of. And as I put the phone down that day, I said, this client of mine, he's equipped. He can hire experts, access a whole lot of expertise and information to take the right decision. There was, a family back home, a wife who was taking care of everything so that he could just focus on his business and salvage that and really look at what next for his enterprise. But I said, what about all the women running, especially service-based businesses? Because that's a domain I was familiar with. That's my domain now, the world of consulting, especially. And when I looked at all the service-based businesses, coaching, consulting, counseling, and predominantly looked at women entrepreneurs leading their businesses, a lot of them are very smart, talented, very educated women across the globe. They've given up very amazing corporate careers to a lot of times do this as a second innings in their life, because that's closer to their purpose, and really gives them a sense of flexibility as well as freedom to be their own person and to use their gifts in a way that they can serve many more people. Now, a lot of these people, instead of coaching, consulting, and counseling, were cooking, cleaning, and caregiving. And I said, the three C's are completely, in the wrong order here. But that was also a reality for most of us. And that was the time, especially when you are a woman who has a business where you already might be working out of home or have, a small consulting firm, coaching setup, or are a solopreneur. It's very difficult because who do you look up to give you that inspiration, and just every one of those 24 hours became tiring and endless, and we had no sort of solution in sight. When would all this end, and when would we be able to go back to our businesses? Thankfully, I had a whole list of clients because of the re-strategizing piece, but a lot of people I started to speak with completely were either shutting down or were just putting everything at bay just to be able to look after their families who needed them the most. And of course, that was a priority. And then when I put down that phone that day, I just sat, pretty much it was this room itself, that, what about if we don't give up on ourselves? We've really taken a big leap out of our corporate lives and got all these credentials, invested time, money, and effort to equip ourselves to be able to serve other people and do some meaningful contribution in this world. What if there could be a way found that we can hold each other's hands? And yes, we are in the same storm, which was COVID, but we are all in different boats. But this has to end eventually, and by the time it does, could we have all grown personally, professionally, and be more inspired to go out and do bigger things, and with more belief, more confidence, and ability, because we've really worked on ourselves in this crazy period and not given up our dream, for sure. And that was the starting point. That was really the ignition for SHEMantra to be born. And I started to reach out, like I did to you, people on LinkedIn, women on LinkedIn, and I'm not a terrible extrovert. This is not my usual style at all. But I think when you're so driven by purpose and passion, that's something that really didn't even seem like it was unusual for me. It seemed like the most natural thing to do as the next step once your calling was clear.
Yeah.
And SHEMantra was born in July 2020. This July, we're completing our third year. So the anniversary is on 14th of July this year. And it's surreal for me because we started off being a by invitation community. We are still by invitation. We are for women entrepreneurs who run their own service-oriented businesses. And we are niche because we want to stay true to our purpose. And even as I say this, we are close to 500 SHEMantrans across the globe, spread in 13 different countries and growing as I'm talking to you today. And it's a feeling of great pride because not only did we tide over this period, I think we became just so close to each other. And I have lived in these 3 years, Meenakshi, everything that I told you before. That sense of connection, strong relationships. In fact, I've coined a new word called that SHEMantra, we have friendlies. They're a mix between friends and family, and they take the best. Normally, they are not such nice parts of either friends or family, but when you combine the best of both of these very precious relationships in our life, you get friendlies at SHEMantra. So And you should have seen that when the lockdown ended, I mean, people just wouldn't stop hugging each other. The first time we were able to meet each other, it just didn't feel like we were meeting each other for the first time. Some people described it like soul connection. Others thanks to all the learning sessions that we had, enabled them to have, month after month, week after week. One person told me it's like I've got a PhD during the COVID period, because I just feel so enlightened, with everything that we did together. Huge sense of leadership emerging, amazing, generous, abundant, contribution from people. What do I say?
Yeah.
It's been a tremendous, experience. And when I come to the lessons, I think what was really helpful was, and I realize its importance even more with each passing day now, but earlier it came very intuitively to me and I put that in practice. So the first lesson really is that, why this is successful and why this is so special and has an emotional place in our hearts, SHEMantra, is because we defined the purpose and the principles right at the beginning. It was very clear why we existed. It was to enable personal and professional growth for women in service-based organizations in a safe, friendly, encouraging environment where everybody brought their gifts, their talents, their ideas, their inspiration, and we shared it abundantly,
Yep.
So that was very clear from day one. And the second thing that was very clear were our principles, which are really, we start with abundance, respect, collaboration, growth, and we tap into the limitless potential that every SHEMantran holds inside of her. And we want to, make it come alive so that she can go out and live her purpose in the world. So our tagline is play your purpose, because we want people to have fun. We want them to be themselves, and we want them to be living their purpose and thriving, living their purpose as well. So that's the first lesson. The second I really realized was that, whoever is the catalyst or the curator of a community really has to be a stickler for preserving the culture. Just like we say for organizations, I think that's just so important. And of course, in big measure, it comes from both purpose and principles, and because they become the guardrails, right? So that there's nothing which is subjective. It's so clear.
Yep.
What's in your culture and what is out of it. And the beauty is that even the newest SHEMantran today gets it.
Yeah.
So as a result, we need to, not have any strict rules or, at best we have some guidelines. And even if I didn't publish those, I would say 99% people would intuitively follow them. Such is the space that has been created, and everybody is co-creating and preserving it because, they think it is their own.
Yeah.
And only because of the culture that we all sort of said, and then I had to take, I think that's the only part I've played, that sort of cultivate that culture and do my best with all sincerity and honesty to maintain that and keep it beautiful and pure. And the third thing that I really say is that, to me, community building is about harnessing the leadership of every community member. So every friendly, is also a leader, right? And there have to be opportunities created where people feel empowered to not just voice their ideas, but run with their ideas and do something meaningful, and that's encouraged completely.
Yeah.
So as a result, today we've got about 12 different micro communities, and each of them is led by a leader who's a SHEMantran, and she has her core committee of other SHEMantrans, and they decide what they want to do with the micro community. For example, the early risers, or a fitness community, or a book club, or an authors club, a budding, authors club, coaches micro community. So again, the community has to be for its community members, right? So we have to take into account everybody's needs, their interests. And how do you create collective success? So you need to be able to have that flexibility built into your culture to allow people to do that, but in a way that keeps it as a safe space, a shared space, and allows for collective success. So these are some lessons, and I think I'm learning every day as we grow along.
Yeah, that was absolutely so beautiful, Shilpa. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I can attest to all of it, being a member of the community. Um, and I know that I've learned so much and gained so much. I've met some amazing people on through the community, and been able to do some collaborative work with them. We are here because of your community. So it's just absolutely fantastic. And as you were sharing, I could see very clearly how you have followed your own, the five principles that you shared earlier about purpose. And I'm looking at my notes here: purpose, connection, culture, creativity,
Camaraderie,
yeah,
creativity.
and contribution. And I think that all of those come through so clearly. And I really loved your call out on culture. In my book, culture is what is tolerated. To me, it's the lowest common denominator,
Yeah.
right? And so being very clear in establishing your guidelines. And I've also seen you time and time again, repeating those guidelines as often as needed, and in a very sort of very clear and kind way. And I think that that's gone a long way in building the community and bringing it to the point that it is. And congratulations, 500 members in 13 countries. That's fabulous. So kudos to
We
you.
are growing. Yes, that feels good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really say, I mean, year one was all about SHEMantrans coming together.
Yeah.
Year two was all about connections going deeper. And
Mm.
year three is all about collaborating for success.
Mm.
And this is a collaboration, right?
Yes,
Just like
yes.
me across continents, pulling up and then talking like this, like a free flow, beautiful conversation. So many more of these are happening, and they're translating into business and growth,
Yep.
and I want to see even more and more of that. So
Yeah. Congratulations and best wishes, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And if you have just now joined us to watch us live or listen to us, this is the NorthStar Cafe, and I am speaking with Shilpa Ajwani, who is the founder and CEO of unomantra, a business strategy consulting and leadership advisory services company. And she's also the creator, curator, and nurturer of an online community of women coaches and consultants and counselors called SHEMantra. And SHEMantra is getting ready to celebrate its third birthday in July of this year. And Shilpa has been sharing with us her journey in community building throughout her career, and specifically with SHEMantra. So if you've just now joined us, pop in the chat where you're joining us from, and what is it that you would like to learn more about community building as a leadership skill. And Shilpa, as we begin to wrap up our conversation, I wanted to ask you a couple of things. One is, what's your word of advice for leaders within organizations? What's the one thing that they can do, the first step that they can take towards starting to build community at work?
So I would say start with the self, and that's where I always tell every leader or potential leader. I look at everybody as a leader. That's a very different thing. But even if we were to strictly follow titles and hierarchies, but I do end up telling them that you deserve to thrive and let thrive. So if you ask me in just limited words, that's my advice. It has been for the longest time. It's not about living and let live, but it's really about thrive and let thrive. And I do tell leaders that while building a community or thinking about it, and belonging to a community, both ways, start with your own well-being. And when I look at how I describe well-being, I for leaders really look at their physical well-being, their mental well-being, their emotional well-being, their intellectual well-being, and environmental well-being. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at these five different types, and they harmonize and come together so that you can really feel secure in who you are, and becoming a part of a community and contributing as a community member, and certainly as a community builder and leader of a community or a catalyst creating a community, you need to be secure personalities and
Mm.
people who are, harmonized and secure, because they come with a sense of well-being, right? That sense of harmony. That's where, because they thrive, that energy is something which is so amazing for any community, and you can derive that energy from the leaders, and you can derive that energy from community members, each other, at peer level within a community, and certainly the leader can derive that energy, really, in fact, ride on it on days, because leaders do have downtime, right?
Yes.
uh, there are days where you just, yeah, it's just impossible right at 5 a.m. in the morning, and you still have to show up, and that's where I think there are days where if you have a community, you don't feel alone, you can be vulnerable, you know that as you've created that environment for them, of trust and belongingness and, camaraderie and connection, you enjoy the same as well,
Yeah.
and you tap into it for your own self.
Yeah.
Um, so that allows, a person to thrive and let thrive, and that's another reason why I'm such a big proponent of communities, and more of them in the formal spaces, in the informal spaces.
Mm.
I mean, we were tribal from thousands of years ago. That's where we supported each other. We played our different parts, but collectively we survived and
Yes.
we evolved. Right, that was a major reason, because we were set up as tribes, and somewhere, we lost that, and I think it's time to really give importance to who we are as human beings, and first connect at a human to human level,
Mm.
and then professionally for sure, and thrive and let thrive is what I would say.
Absolutely. That was just brilliant. That was beautiful what you shared. And I loved your call out of starting with self and thrive and let thrive. And what you said about energy and how and the need and importance for community leaders to feel secure with who they are and where they are, and that really calls for that ties back to starting with self and developing that self-awareness, that helps them with self-regulation around their energy, right? So that's absolutely fantastic. Well, this has been great, Shilpa. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights and wisdom so generously. Before you go, what's the best way for people to find you, and where can folks learn more about other women coaches and consultants, learn more about SHEMantra?
So the best way and the easiest right now is to connect with me on LinkedIn, Shilpa Ajwani. Easy to locate and connect with me. You can also have a look at my website, unomantra.com. That's another place. And I think between these two, just reach out to me, and any questions on SHEMantra, I'm just very happy to answer those as well. We are a guarded community. We haven't yet even gone out and made our own website, but that's something we might do in the future. We had created a SHEMantra Fest last year, which was an online festival that we created in September
Yeah,
2022.
yeah.
So you can find some action there on LinkedIn, because you have SHEMantra Fest pages on all social media. So go ahead and have a look there, and you'll get a glimpse of how special we are and how amazing SHEMantrans are.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Shilpa, and wish you the best. And I look forward to continuing to be on the SHEMantra community, be one of the SHEMantrans, and look forward to many more conversations like this. Thank you so much for joining us at the NorthStar Cafe today.
Gratitude for bringing me in on this conversation. You do such a fantastic job of bringing very valuable insights, conversations, different speakers. I've had a look at your fantastic YouTube channel, and I'm just so glad that we could do this today like this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Likewise, and thank you for your feedback, and thank you to everyone that watched us live, and to those that will either watch it or listen to it later. It'll be available on all three channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So we meet every other week at the NorthStar Cafe. And in our next episode, we're going to be continuing to talk about leadership development, but we're going to talk about the power of quiet achievers. And so I really look forward to that conversation, and I hope you will be able to join us live then. In the meantime, take care, be well, and see you right back here soon. Take care. Bye for now.